Okay, so things that we've got to do now. Obviously we're going to sort out perhaps about that wing fold thing. Now we can move on with pigments and stuff. Now this is going totally dry. Now the thing with the pigment scrub is, as we said before, we've had them. All we do, literally come along. Normally I would use a sheet of A4 white paper, but it's a little bit glowy. So if I show you here, all we do, we take our pigments. So we've got various colours down here. We've got black right here. So all we do, we're just going to grab a bit of a brush, okay, take a bit of the black. Now it's very dark, but all we're doing is just little bits of, just around the crew axis area, and all we're doing is dabbing this on for the moment, okay. I'm going to put a tiniest little bit down the walkway on both sides. I'm blowing off the excess. I don't want it to grime in too much, okay? So we're just going to do the same on the other side, because the black is a very, very strong colour. And we don't want it to sort of go in too much, but it will be enough to give us a bit of a grimy effect over the flat. Now we've got a couple of fingerprint marks on this, where obviously it picks up from the oil of the fingerprint. So if we just move you in just a fraction, you can see where I mean. It's at the top of your screen just here. So all we're going to do is just rub it down and out, and that's literally where it's dried in a little bit. It's where I touched it when it was still drying. So all we're doing now is just popping around the actual walkways with the cotton bud, and this will just rub in any more grime we want to. So we just rub those around like that. Okay, bits around the crew access area, around here at the front. So let me just bring your camera over. You can see we're just going to go around it, and all we're doing is a bit of a blend-in job. Okay, we can just put this up, and it just gives us a grimed-in type of look to the areas where perhaps it would get wear and tear. Now after that's on, what we're going to do is fade it back a little bit with my finger, because we're trying to just grime it in and blend it all in, something like that. Okay, so that gives us a bit of a grime. It's one of those things that get picked up better. The other thing you can do with the wash is, just look for his sponge, sorry, with the pigment is, we just need this to protect the front end up here. We roll it that way. Now I'm doing this back to front, so you have to pardon me if I get this a little bit wrong. What we can do is we'll take some of this, okay, and all we're going to do is just flick it down the back, just for the moment, just little dabs here and there. A little bit in there, just to grime up, because the Phantom tends to have a very grimy underside. Okay, so this will just literally give us a little bit more dirt and grime to the area, and as I say, we'll do something in a moment, so we just don't overdo it is the key to this. You just want to keep it quite light. But already you can see you get that nice type of griminess to it. So we're just going to add a tiny bit more on this front. Okay. So it's just sort of coming back, this front lobe area. Okay, so we're just going to take a little bit, running all the way down the back here, and what it will do is just soot it up, for want of a better word. Just a little bits over the burner cans, things like that. Okay, now that's on, what we do, we'll take a smaller brush, okay, tiniest bit of water. Okay, so this just got tiny bits of water on it, and all we're doing now is flicking the brush back, and it should give us that nice streaked grimy effect, just like that. Now it's one of those things, I hope you can pick this up, but you can see there the lower one nice and streaked just like that. Okay, we'll take a tiny bit more water, let's say wring most of it out. Okay, then we'll do this top one as well. So we're just picking bits of it up, we're just flicking it all the way down to the rear. And what it'll do, it just really grimes everything up and gives a great look to the underside. Now we've just done that area just here, and as you can see the rest of it is all very clean. So you could use this principle for doing the other bits. So if you just grab a tiniest of little bits of on the brush just down on these areas, see like here, okay, and then wet your brush again, dry it basically all the way off, so you're just left with a little bit, okay, and then you can just flick it and you'll pick up the original, okay, and give you your nice flip back situation just like that. So you can go around and pick out little areas to do. So perhaps we'll pick a little bit after this, a little bit off of the front here, just in these areas here. Perhaps we'll pick a bit up here. Okay, that's a little bit in these areas. Okay, perhaps we'll take a touch, and this bit's just down here. Same thing, clean your brush off, pretty much dry, just down in. Okay, and then flick it, and what we can do is tidy up the original point. So if it's looking like down here, where it's not really coming through to your liking, you can wet your brush just a tiny bit more, okay, and drag a little bit more with it, so it looks like it's coming out of these areas. And when you re-wet it, you can notice it all flicks out and you can get this nice hydraulic stain effect. And then if you find out you're a little bit too much, what you can do is just come along with the cotton bud, okay, and just streak out the original area where it's coming from. Okay, come back with your brush and you can just blend it all in just like that. If I show you that one again, okay, so up here we've got this bit of a bump, okay, we're just going to wipe that out with a clean cotton bud and then just flick over it again to bring us in. Okay, so then we're just going to re-wet this one down here, and there we go. That's how we get that nice type of griminess. And usual thing, if you don't like it, wipe this off and you can start again with it. So what you can do, you can sort of build up patches of areas. Now this is using the black because obviously we're doing this engine area, but as you move around you might want to use things like the dark dirt. You can obviously use rusty colours as well if you want to cause different colours and everything else, but that's a general effect for giving it. But I think you agree, down this back end it does give it that very, very nice worn down, weathered look, and by the time we go around the rest of it and do all the other bits and pieces, we should end up with pretty much what we're looking for. So if we just take out those there, same thing, we can go back over the original area and just give it that nice sort of worn down, grubby look to it all. Because if you take this one that's clean and you put these next to it, you can see really how much it works. You know, when you put white over it, when you do it you think, oh, that's not too bad, but when you put white in you can see how much you really made it grubby and sort of toned it down and everything else like that. So I'm going to work my way around the bottom and around the top and everything and give this that type of effect all the way over. Okay, so what we're now really in that stage where we're going to bring it all together and everything else like that. Now everything's dry, obviously we've got the pigments going along on the bottom, everything else. Now these haven't been sealed yet, so they're going to need a seal coat put on. So it'll just be another coat of flat right the way over everything. So you're checking to make sure you've got no silvering, everything else going on. So that'll get that in a moment. And then we can go round and we can unmask windows and we can start to fit all the bits in. A couple of bits I've already got on with. All we've done here, this is the actual, the doors. Now actually what we've got here is a situation where it's just sprayed flat red, okay, and then obviously it's got the dirt wash right the way over. Now I stuck them down, obviously on the back they're going to be quite grimy, but they're going to be very, very clean. So what we're going to have to do is clean these off. So you should find a wet bit of, all that is the wash where it's leaked through, but it is very, very clean. So we're going to have to weather that up. So we might as well pop that on before it gets the flat coat. Okay, so the same will go for these other bits. So what we can start doing is adding all the little bits and pieces onto this one. Okay, so I've got most of them in front of me are the parts I want to stick on and how I want to do it. So we just bring these towards me a fraction. Now the thing is, you have to remember it's getting very, very delicate. We've got things that stick out on the front here and that, and we don't want to get them damaged. So that, hence the sponge is out. Okay, so it's a nice little thing you can do is just pop it down on the sponge and it'll protect. I should have one for the rear really, but to be honest I'm out of sponge. So what you can use is a little bit of polystyrene if you haven't got any, and all that'll do is literally stops them being worn off. You know, if you're doing it a lot they do tend to wear off and everything else like that. So okay, it's pretty straightforward how this is going to go. Okay, but we've got the doors, they're going to come along and they're going to stick on the front areas. Okay, so by flipping it over and things like that, we can see how they're going to fit. Usual thing for me, I always tend to use a bit of super glue. So what I do, have the pot, move these out of the way slightly. Okay, and then all this does is save your bench and also gives you an idea of where your glue is. Okay, so that's a little bit crispy at the top. It's dried out just a fraction, so we'll just crimp the top of that off. Okay, so this is the thicker type of glue, okay, i.e. an old super glue. It's just down out of shot. Okay, so it's more like a gel, which is great for doing this because it's got great grip capabilities. So all we'll do, I'll just angle you down a little bit, you can see. Touch down into the glue so it goes just to the bits you want. Okay, let's stick on those. Then you should be able to come in and fit them in, and because they're already weathered up and everything else, and you should find they'll stick very, very quickly on a situation like that. So this is this door here, so we pop that one in. If I do it hold up you can see it, so we're just going to go, don't put too much glue on, but it's basically going to come in, sit down. Okay, and you sort of pull it up into these, and I must admit I've got slightly ahead of myself to explain how I did the red around the doors. Okay, but that's those two on. So if I just show you how we did those doors. Okay, for many, many times you get this red area. Let me just move him out the way a bit. We get the red around the doors, around the edges. Now the reason for this being is so basically ground crew and everything can see the edges of doors if they're not closed properly as well as walking into them. Okay, so obviously they're on quite a few things, so you get them around the edges of all the doors. Now the old way, I would take something like a flat red, okay, have it dip thin and let the capillary action run around the outside for doing these, okay. Now the trouble with that is that if you get any bleed through, it's a bit of a nightmare cleaning it up and things like that. Hence when good old Sharpie pen comes in very handy. Now I do like the Sharpie, basically it's permanent so it's not going to rub off, but there is a drawback to doing it which I'll explain in a moment. What you have to do is make sure you've got no wash around the edges. If you've got any wash around the edges and things like that, what will happen is that it will just soak it up into the clay, especially if you've got using that, but if anything else it will stain it and distort it. You take your Sharpie pen, just like so, okay, then all we do is run it around the outside. Okay, then you can just colour in all the areas, and it is so much easier than going around and doing it by hand. Then afterwards what you can do is put some weathering wash over the top and do it like that. Now the big thing to remember is not to come along with any form of thinners, be it acrylic or enamel, afterwards, because what happens is the Sharpie pen will leak and bleed all over the rest of the model, because the capillary reaction will carry this stuff, it melts it down and goes away. Now I used to think it was probably just something like enamel thinners and things like that. As I learned out yesterday when I was doing all the others, is that what happens is it actually works with acrylic X28 thinners as well. So before you know it, I'm absolutely covering everywhere. But it is so much easier doing it with a Sharpie and popping around with it all like this. Another way, you might want to, like this, to be honest, is an old Sharpie pen I've had for a long time. But what you can do is obviously get right into the corners with it, everything else just like that, and that is so much easier, and it dries instantly so you can hold it. Now you might want to give it another coat if you find it's not quite as bright as you like, but as I say, the other things also we've done edges of flaps with it, which come out quite well. We've done all the little doors. These have been re-washed afterwards, so you get a bit of grime in there as well, which will darken it up and everything else. And all that is literally a little bit of dark wash all over them and just left it. I haven't even gone around to clean them up, and that's why the flaps are, hence them being like that as well. And that's really simplicity in itself, and all the other bits had it all at the same time, but it does save a lot of messing around. Let me just peel these off whilst I think of it. And make sure you haven't got any bits stuck to your tape. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is continue to stick all the doors on. They're extremely easy to go on, like these doors here. I'm going to come onto this one. So it is the only drawback with a kit of this scale is that you're going around all these bits like this, but if we just angle the camera. But all we're going to do, the doors are dead easy. Just use a cocktail stick, taking a little bit of the gel up into the groove slot at the top, and this one there's a groove slot at the top, and because obviously it's going onto white metal with these, you can't use normal glue, you are going to have to use these, and you literally give a little bit of a push, and there we go, door on, job done. Now obviously we've got to do the little ones as well, the little doors have got to go on. So what we're going to do now, just whilst you're away, I'm going to put all the doors on. Okay, I'm going to put the speed brakes in. They're a dead simple fit, there's no real problem about these. And I'm going to push on the pylons. I'm not going to actually fit them on properly, but I'm going to push them on. Then it can have a final flat coat and everything else like that. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so that's a flat coat underneath, and as you can still see all the weathering. I know a lot of people think when you use pigments you can't see the weathering after it. Well, there you go, you can. You just need to be a bit more harsh with it. Now it's still a little bit soft everywhere, and I want to get these off because we're going to have to work on these front canopies in a moment. So we just pop them off. Okay, so what we're going to do now is a little bit of unmasking for this front edge, purely because I want to see and make sure we're all okay and how it's come out under here. So if you want to come right in, you can see me for the unveiling moment as I see it. So okay, we'll start with this front edge. Okay. What I tend to do, these masks, I keep these because they're quite handy to have, so I stick them somewhere flat, and there we go. So there's the first one off. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. So remember, when you're taking off masking, don't go in there and cut down because you'll scratch your plastic. Just lift it up, and then you can grab a corner with your blade and lift it off just like so. Okay, now I say we played a little bit with this glass work to get it to sit in nicely, so we're hoping it's paid off and going to be a nice join and everything else on there. And I must admit, very happy how that clear work has come out. We've got a very seamless join running all the way down the bottom, which is a nice touch to have, and we've got a nice clear glass, nice and clear. We can see all the details through there, the HUD is sitting correctly and everything else just like that. So I'm very happy with how that's come out. The other two as well will be these side windows. Okay, and for these we're really making sure we've got no fogging, because we did use a normal bit of glue to set these in, and again they've come out very nicely as well. So okay, I'm not going to unmask these front canopies just yet, because what we're going to do is obviously got to put some photo etch parts down into these to sort of show these up very nicely and everything else. So I don't want to sort of get in there, because what we might do is give it a flat coat afterwards, and for that we can sink a little bit more masking tape in there, flat coat, and away we go. But that's the tricky one we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that the cockpit was all okay, showing and everything else. So we've got a few things I'm going to get on with now. Obviously I'm going to install all the pylons on and fix them in properly. They can go in and then be locked in, everything else. And the other thing I'm going to do is just I'm going to pop around and install all the doors, the activators, the hydraulics, which are all just time consuming and just going to sit in, but they're all very straightforward and they all go in there correctly in the right place. Okay, and then when we've done that, we can come back and we can do a little bit more detailing. Okay, so some of the final little details which are obviously we're bringing to this is a lot of this photo etch stuff that we've got still to come. Now it's one of those areas where you know, obviously photo etch part, you expect it in the cockpit like we did earlier and things like that, but it's sometimes all the little subtle things that you can put on your model that will really make the difference. The biggest one you can actually do is obviously things like photo etch mirrors and the like. Now what we've done here, to show you what's gone on, we've obviously got these plates down the bottom, and we've got, you might be able to see the little mirrors up on the top. Now obviously we're still masked up, you can't really see them. So what this is one of the U-shaped or horseshoe-shaped ones on and bent and configured, and then we've got two, one down from the inside and one on the outside, and it really is worth it, because without it, it does look a little bit odd with the kit. So those have been put in place. You've got other subtle areas as well where you can do. Now this one here, you can see quite plain, nothing really going on, something like that. And then you compare it to one that we have done, this one here, we've actually got some of these details on the end of this one and on the end of the back, and we've got some photo etch plate on the bottom, and it really does liven it up and giving it some detail. You know, obviously we've painted this beforehand, but these areas which you can see are actually metal colour anyway, and really does just give a little bit of detail and a little bit of draw your eye. Now I'm not saying you should go around and cover your entire model in hundreds of tons of bits of photo etch. What I'm saying is sometimes it's best to go through the sheet. And obviously when you get these sheets, you've got hundreds of tiny little bits on and think, oh God, I want to work all my way through these. But what you can do is basically pick out the ones you want to use. So some of the parts obviously are already moulded on, a lot of the aerials, things like that. So you don't have to go around. You don't have to cut them all off and replace them with photo etch. Obviously photo etch is extremely fiddly, very, very fragile. If you touch it, it will ping off and go away. But little areas where it can come in its own is these little things like sway braces on missile racks, obviously missile racks themselves, photo etch mirrors, they're great than anything that's obviously likely to be plastic on there and things like that, and you can put them on. Obviously things like PVA glues if you're worried about where it's around clear marks, or if you can use a gel form or a stickier type of super glue. I've got one just down here at the shop which is older, it's thicker, so it's less likely to vaporize and stain and mark all your actual clear parts and things like that. But what you can certainly do is go around and pick them out, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just going around it thinking, okay, we're going to add a little bit around the undercarriage area, things like that. Obviously I'm not going to go around and replace things like, as we were saying, aerials and that, 'cause I'm quite happy, but some of the ones I've destroyed by accident, you know, obviously down this top spine area, I've got one that goes at the front here and things like that, and another one down the back. When I was cutting this out, I snapped them off, you know, then luckily I've got replacements here, so I can come along, touch a super glue, pop them in, and we're away and we're good to go as well. So in some ways it does work both ways, but don't think you have to go around and add every single one of these on, or to be honest, you will be going for ages on these, but you can pick them out, and that's what I'm doing. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. We're just going around putting them on. I've got this on foam, I've gone around, put these doors on. We were talking about the actuators, they're in there, which really do strengthen up the undercarriage and things like that, really do give it a bit. So also what we're doing, we're going to add the doors on, and we're putting those on as well and getting those fixed up, really ready for the final reveal. Okay, so we're really getting close to bringing this one to a close now. So little things we've done, we've unmasked the canopies. I'm giving them a little bit of a clean up, which is just a little bit of a polish on the clear parts, and we're happy of how it all is. And said before, we've gone around and we've put everything on we needed to do. The photo etch parts are now on, everything else. Now one of the little things I spoke about was that I wanted the wing fold to sort of, you know, be in the folded configuration. Normally it's not designed totally for actually having it in a wing fold up, it's normally designed for it down. One thing we do need to mention is the angle of which these wings are, if you do it with the wings down, is wrong, okay? Check your references. There's a couple of little things you can buy, little wooden plinths and that, with the right angles, but what you're going to need basically is a little shimmer plastic card along the top edges of these to make them down, otherwise they stick far too far up. Anyway, I digress. What I've actually been doing, got this stuff here. Now you might remember this. This is the metal rod, okay, that's actually covered in plastic. And the great thing about it is you can come along, okay, and then bend it a 90-degree angle and it stays. Also, it's very, very strong. It's pretty thick stuff, this is, and it works a treat. So what I did, made a right angle, and then using some heavy-duty pliers, we cut the part like so. If we just bring you in a fraction, okay, and then what we've actually done, we've got these here, okay, as right angles. Well, you can probably see it in here. We've put in a couple of holes, okay, down in these, okay, just like so, and we've got them now sticking out, so they're in here just like this. So that works pretty well. And then all we've done is we've come along, just move this a fraction. Okay, then we've got the wing tip, get the camera in, here we go, in just like this, and then what we've actually done, super glued these two ends in just like this, okay, gone along, lined up the locks, okay, so the locks and the latches are all in the correct place, okay, then we've marked out where they are, drilled two very small holes, okay, and then literally what happens is you can come along and push fit them in, job done. That simple, that easy, without actually having to manufacture a locking device which is going to lock this in and everything else like that. Now if you wanted to, you could do these as a loose fit. I've glued these in, but if you have them as a loose fit and just use a longer bar going in, you can do it, and then that way if you wanted to come along and have them actually hanging out, you know, afterwards and just push it in as a push fit as we were doing before, you could do that, okay? But that was it. So literally you just come along now, okay, and sit these in, and they go in just like that, and that gives us our perfect little wing fold. And these little plugs that you see in there just look like the natural hinges, and with a little bit of weathering like we've done there before, we've painted this up red, we've opened up those hydraulic hoses as well, it all looks pretty good, and I'm quite happy with how that's come out. So I'm quite happy to leave that now just like so. So really what we've got now is these finishing little items. We've sprayed the top part green, so obviously this will go on, okay, and finish up the green, done that. We've done the side ones as well, so we've painted those up, they're done as well. Now this top part we can go along, or if you wanted to do, you can leave it as it is, or you can go along like I'm going to do afterwards and put even more cabling and wiring in there just to liven it all up a little bit, some more perhaps down this back part, things like that, just to really get it going and everything else. The major things we've still got to get on with now, we've actually got to put in and install the Refueling probe receptacle and holder thing. So all we're going to do, we've just got a little bit of super glue just down here. We're just going to pop along with this one, and we're going to install the bar. Now this is the one that obviously holds it outwards. And again, if we just bring your camera in a little, you can see what we're up to. Okay, so we've installed the bar in just like that. Okay, we've got the rear part in as well, hopefully, there we go, and that will sit up and hold just in. Then we've got the other one, which I probably should have put in before, so we're going to have to be a bit of a tweezer job on this. He says if he could find his tweezers, and he's lost his backup pair as well, so we just use these. But basically, say these are all a bit white and a bit fresh at the moment. If I can, I wonder if I can get this one out. And you just pop this one in. Obviously, what we want to do is just push this rear one in. There we go. Bit of a fiddly pain to get that one in, but that one, just move that off, will sit in there, and then this one in up like so. So we have our refueling area in just like that, Okay, and then what we can do is the door will just stick on to the outside. Okay, just like so. Bring the camera up, there we go. We'll sit on there just like that, okay, and we'll cover it in. And what we'll do is we'll give it a bit of a wash up afterwards. Okay, so we've got that one in. We've also got to do the seats and the harnesses, which we'll cover in a moment, and we'll get those on. But really, we're actually taking shape. At the same time, whilst you're doing these, a good point to do them now, if you haven't done them yet, okay, just grabbing here, is the lights and all the bits and pieces of clear part. If you put them all in the fret and paint them nice and early now, like we've done obviously the top light here, we've got the light that's going to go on the front down here, and all the others. If you get them painted now, then they're all going to be dry, bone dry, because if you try and do them when they're tacky and you put them on, they tend to be a little bit of a problem. But basically we've got the one that's going to go on up at the back here, which I'm hoping is this one right here, or is it that one? It's that one there. Okay, so picking your lights out, and we've got the one that goes on the tail as well. So we just snip these off the fret. Okay, and the one off the front. That's it. And what we'll do, we'll just take a tiniest little bit of super glue just around on that front edge, just like that. Okay, then that one can just sit in the front, which is nicely in just like that. Okay, then we've got the one to go on the tail. Okay, so this one, we'll just see how it fits to start with before we come along and glue. Just got a tiniest little bit to nick off the back. Just cleaning up these little guys. A little tip you can do with your works once you've done around them, like even this one's a little bit too wet, is once you just need to tickles to set, is once you've put them on and they're glued on, just come along with a little bit of clear gloss just to tidy them all up and also help them sit down. But there we go, that's that one on the back end as well. So that one goes in there just like that. Important to get that one in because a lot of people do forget that one, and it's one of those ones which is pretty important to do. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to install the last of all the little bits, okay, and then what we'll do is we'll do for the seats going in last. So I'm going to fix and secure the actual front part on the actual refueling probe, get that fixed in, sort out, and I've got to paint up the little activators for that, but then join me in a minute, we can get the seats finished, get it in, and then it's job done.